The Jacksonville Jaguars are the NFL's Florida man. Makes sense, they play in Florida and most people don't take them seriously. But in the early 90s, the NFL did. The city of Jacksonville was awarded a football team in 1993 as the 54th largest football market in the country. There were 28 teams in the league back then. You're telling me 25 larger markets couldn't get one? Yep, they spawned a lengthy history. If this franchise is a joke, it's a pretty good one. So come join us as we explore Duval County and an abridged history of the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. The Jaguars started play in 1995 and, for fear of lawsuit, are already on their second logo. The inaugural team finished 4-12, but showed hard in the 6 games they lost by 1 score. This team is also notable for being the last to face the first edition of the Browns in a Week 17 Jaguars win before the Browns moved to Baltimore to become the Ravens. Expansion teams take forever to become competitors, or so do you think. Because in their second season, the Jaguars were 8-7, needing a win to get in. Riding a 4-game winning streak, they just needed to beat a 3-win Falcons team to make the postseason. But in the waning seconds, the Falcons marched to the Jacksonville 13, setting up the game-winning kick from Hall of Fame kicker Morten Andersen. Right?
And it's no good! It's no good! It's no good!
Hey, look, the Jaguars are in the playoffs by an act of God in their second year under head coach Tom Coughlin, who was the highest paid rookie head coach ever at the time with a contract worth $4 million. Coughlin's crew of playmakers includes left-handed quarterback Mark Brunell, the 19th 4,000-yard passer in NFL history. In Santa's bag for Brunell were a duo of valuable toys in receivers Keenan McCardell and Jimmy Smith, nicknamed Thunder and Lightning respectfully. McCardell will post 6 great seasons in Jacksonville, and Smith, who almost died from a post-surgical infection and didn't catch his first NFL pass until the age of 26, will post 1,000 yards 9 times in 11 tries in Jacksonville. These 3 players formed the Jaguars' successful 5-game playoff push, and from it rose one of the most unlikely playoff runs ever captured. Against a Bills team with more playoff wins in the 90s than any in the AFC up to that point, the 8.5 underdog Jags shocked the hosts 30-27 in the last game of quarterback Jim Kelly's Hall of Fame career. The hero in this game was Hall of Fame left tackle Tony Boselli. As far as linemen go, few times has a fan base loved their left tackle as much as Jaguar fans loved Boselli. While Boselli had McDonald's burgers named after him, he was serving up pancakes against Defensive Player of the Year and Hall of Fame pass rusher Bruce Smith, holding Smith to 0 sacks. With the win, the Jaguars traveled to Denver to take on the top seed, 12.5 favorite Broncos. Legendary quarterback Joe Theismann once compared Brunell to Hall of Famer Steve Young, and it was easy to see why in this game. Where did this throw come from? What is this move? Brunell was also a gifted scrambler, highlighted by this famous run where he eluded every Bronco for 29 yards. On a 3rd down a few plays after that, the Jaguars went for the kill on a touchdown pass to the end zone from Brunell to Jimmy Smith. Mind you, this came at a time where many teams would have been happy settling for 3 points, but that would have put the Jaguars up 6 against a quarterback with more fourth-quarter comebacks than anyone at the time aside from Johnny Unitas. This took some balls, and the balls paid off. The Broncos cut the deficit to 3 late, but with the Jaguars recovering the onside kick, they delivered the 3rd largest upset in postseason history, 30-27, also handing John Elway the last playoff loss of his Hall of Fame career. Elway's Broncos teams lost 3 Super Bowls by an average margin of 32 points, so believe him when he says a divisional round defeat to a team in their 2nd year of existence was the most haunting loss of his NFL career. The 9-7 second-year Jaguars were in the AFC Championship, and in said AFC Championship, they put in another hard-fought effort against the Patriots. With a chance to tie the game late, their season ended on a fumble recovery for a touchdown in favor of New England. It was a bittersweet end to an amazing season, and they also went as far in the playoffs as their fellow Cat expansion club in the Carolina Panthers. But where the Panthers would descend into mediocrity for the rest of the 90s, the Jaguars were just getting started. The 97 and 98 clubs both finished 11-5, the latter being good enough for the team's first division title. It was time to call forth another team legend to join perhaps the league's best receiving duo. In 1998, rookie running back Fred Taylor rushed for over 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground. He'll spend 11 seasons in Jacksonville. Only Hall of Famers Edgerrin James and LaDainian Tomlinson finished with more yards than Taylor in this span. The 97 Jags got to kick the wildcard round off on the road against the Broncos once more. Remember when I said they handed John Elway his last playoff loss? The 98 Jags finished a little better, overcoming Brunell completing less than 42% of his passes with a revenge win over the Patriots in Jacksonville's first home playoff game. Against the Jets in the divisional round, the Jags put on a brave face and nearly overcame a 24-7 deficit, but 3 interceptions from Brunell helped cement them as victims of a 34-24 crime scene. Things could be better, but with 3 playoff appearances in your first 4 seasons, it's hard to complain if you're a Jaguars fan. Now let's make that 4 in 5. An old friend of the channel, Dom Capers, was hired as defensive coordinator, and with his help, the 99 Jaguars catapulted to the top of the league at 14-2. The top-scoring defense allowed less than 10 points in 8 games, something only 5 other post-merger teams can say. And for the first time, they had a defender reach 10 sacks. 3 of them, actually. The combined efforts of Tony Brackens, Kevin Hardy, and Gary Walker helped the team lead the NFL with 57 sacks. If only there were a nickname for that. As expected, the offense was a top 10 unit. An injury in the 1997 preseason sapped Mark Brunell's athleticism for the rest of his career, but he was still one of the better quarterbacks in the league and had the lowest interception percentage in 1999. The ground game featured a dominant split between Fred Taylor and James Stewart. Keenan McCardell just missed 900 yards receiving, and Jimmy Smith had a blockbuster season, setting franchise records for catches and yards. One catch to the Jacksonville's success in 1999 was that none of the teams they beat had a winning record. But the only way to prove these people wrong is to win in the playoffs. I said win, not massacre. The Jaguars didn't just win against a 9-7 Dolphins team, they put them in permanent timeout 62-7, the largest blowout of any playoff game in the Super Bowl era. Let's watch the forever underrated Fred Taylor make an amazing cut and cruise past Dolphins defenders for the longest playoff run in NFL history. It was so lopsided that Brunell sat the rest of the game with 12 minutes left in the first half, and then the backup torched the starters. So let's recap what the Jaguars have done in their existence so far. They've played in the last game of Jim Kelly and Dan Marino's careers, the last playoff loss of John Elway's career, and the last playoff game for coaches Marv Levy and Jimmy Johnson, all 5 in the Hall of Fame. Their next magic trick was losing to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans 3 times were the only team to beat the Jaguars all season. In the post-merger era dating back to 1970, the 1999 Jaguars are the only top seed to lose to one opponent 3 times. I can by no means confirm nor deny that Titans defensive coordinator Greg Williams stole the Jaguars playbook from that season, but that's what one former Jags lineman alleges when he joined Greg in DC in the 2000s. Former Ravens quarterback Trent Dilfer also alleges Williams told him the Titans stole the Ravens playbook in 2000. The Ravens won the Super Bowl that year. After 14 wins in 1999, the 2000 and 2002 Jaguars combined for just 19, and Tom Coughlin was fired after 2002. It wasn't all bad, though. Jimmy Smith had perhaps the most impressive game from a receiver ever in Week 2 of the 2000 season, facing a Ravens defense that allowed fewer points than any in the 21st century, and hauling in 15 receptions for 291 yards and 3 touchdowns. The efforts of Smith helped lead the Jaguars to an impressive 39-36 loss. 2001 was the last year for Keenan McCardell as well as Mike Hollis, the team's kicker from the beginning. Hollis retired after 2003, then came out of retirement 19 years later at the age of 50 to play for the Jacksonville Sharks of the Indoor Football League. After 2003, McCardell, Hollis, Coughlin, Brunell, and Tony Boselli were all gone, Boselli having his legendary 7-year career cut by shoulder injuries. Under new head coach Jack Del Rio, the 2003 Jaguars struggled at 5-11, but 2 of those wins stand out. In Week 10, the 1-7 Jags upset the 7-1 Colts thanks to Fred Taylor catching a body on a game-winning touchdown. In Week 16 against the Saints, they allowed a multilateral play to go for a touchdown as time expired before Saints kicker John Carney made sure it wasn't a game-tying one. 2004 brought the team's first winning season of the millennium at 9-7. Not enough to make the playoffs, but a step in the right direction. The offense was one of the best in the league, if by best you mean 29th best, and he also boasted a talented defense. My favorite player is all-pro defensive tackle John Henderson. Henderson hypes himself up before games by having a personal trainer slap him really, really hard. In 2005, the Jaguars crafted another top 10 defense. They were in contention with the Colts to win the AFC South division, but came up short and got swept. That's okay because they finished 12-4. This group was quarterbacked by Byron Leftwich, not left-handed nor sandwich nor witch, but he'll throw just 5 interceptions. That's not a lot at all. So the Jaguars were back in the playoffs for the first time in 6 years, and by getting the gentleman's shutout in the wildcard round against the Patriots, it's like they were never there. Not to worry, because the 2006 Jaguars are in prime position to cruise to another playoff spot, if they didn't fumble an 8-5 start to finish 8-8. But there's a few things to like about this team. This time, both the offense and defense ranked inside the top 10 in scoring, and they'll had 2 key franchise cornerstones in the draft. Tight end Mercedes Lewis, still playing in the NFL as of this recording, and running back Maurice Jones-Drew, who will rack up 13 touchdowns in his rookie season. But for as respected as Byron Leftwich was for his guts, the Jaguars cut him just before the start of the 2007 season in favor of new starter David Garrard. The good news was, in 2007, Jacksonville made it back to the playoffs as Garrard, who threw just 3 interceptions, secretly may have had one of the most efficient quarterback seasons in recent memory. ESPN QBR, created in 2006, takes into account what a quarterback does on third down, scrambles, how long he throws the ball, if the ball goes past the first down marker, and time remaining in a half. Basically, it's half efficiency, half clutch, if that makes sense. Garrard's 2007 was given a QBR of 80.9, the 7th highest season in the stats time on this earth. The passing efficiency helped land the 11-5 Jags a road playoff game against the Steelers team 2 years removed from a Super Bowl trophy. And they scored 4 touchdowns in the first 39 minutes, including a pick 6 from corner Rasheed Mathis, who in 8 career games against the Steelers finished with 6 interceptions and 3 touchdowns. But in the fourth quarter, the Steelers scored 19 unanswered points to take the lead 29-28. How about we draw up a 32-yard season-saving quarterback draw? That'll work. With 40 seconds left, the Jaguars kicked the go-ahead field goal, which turns out to be the game-winning one. What a wild win delivered by the Jaguars and Garrard, who one day will actually admit that before his famous 4th down run, he intentionally missed the previous pass because he knew he'd convert on this play. It's not as malicious as my words make it seem, but damn, that is as confident a statement you'll ever hear from a quarterback. I don't think the Jaguars could be confident they'll be able to beat the unbeaten Patriots in the following divisional round. Remarkably, they were tied at the end of the first half with an offensive juggernaut. But with Tom Brady missing on just 2 of his 28 pass attempts, he carved up the Jaguars' defense as the Patriots outscored Jacksonville 17-6 in the second half. You can't be too mad. Jacksonville lost to the greatest regular season team there ever was. But they did need to address the pass rush for 2008, which they did. The guys they drafted combined for 17.5 career sacks, but hey, you can't say they didn't try. They just didn't try well. The 2008 Jaguars finished 5-11, the defense regressed, and the offensive line went through a season of hell. One particular case was near fatal. Tackle Richard Collier's career tragically ended when he escaped death in an incident where he was shot 14 times, was paralyzed from the waist down, and needed his leg amputated in order to survive. Collier, miraculously, has seen better days since then. He received the prosthetic leg, is happily married, and is an avid wheelchair basketball player, having played for more than a decade. All in all, Collier seems grateful, happy to be alive. Maurice Jones-Drew took over in 2008 as the Jaguars' lead back. In the following year, he set a franchise record for rushing touchdowns, and in 2011, he led the NFL with over 1,600 rushing yards, also a team record. As for Jacksonville's 2009 quest for another playoff berth, it had setbacks. They dropped their first 2 games, then won 7 of their next 10, then lost their last 4 to finish 7-9. 2010 was Garrard's last season in the NFL, but he set a team record in passing touchdowns with 23. It's not a lot, but look, you can't say it wasn't at one point a team record. In this same season, Garrard threw a game-winning Hail Mary against the Texans off a deflection in the end zone that receiver Mike Thomas caught out of nowhere. He's got the goofiest grin after it. Did I just draw that up? No, you didn't, David, but those are always the best plays. His 2010 Jaguars actually led the AFC South through 13 games at 8-5, but broke the win button and said, playoffs? No thanks, losing their last 3 games. At least the Jaguars hired their first ever general manager, GM for short, in Gene Smith, part of the team's scouting department since their foundation. He'll be in that role from 2009 to 2012 in what's considered by many the worst GM tenure the NFL has ever seen. In 4 drafts, Smith's Jaguars took only 1 Pro Bowler, and it was a punter that earned it on a different team. Jacksonville passed on some All-Pros and future stars to take Brian Anger, admittedly an excellent player in his own right, just, a punter. Most egregiously, they passed on Super Bowl winning quarterback Russell Wilson. It'll take years for the Jaguars to recover from the stench these 2009 to 2012 draft classes left. That's why they call the NFL draft a crapshoot. Now, I understand the Jaguars will lose more games than anyone from 2011 to 2016, and that's probably what you're here to see me discuss. But I want to take the time to highlight some of the team's more unique players and personalities in these years. For how much losing they'll do, moments like these reveal why the Jaguars' diehards remain diehards, and how the pain made them stronger. First up is kicker Josh Scobee, responsible for a ton of clutch kicks as a Jaguar. His 59-yard game winner against the Colts in Week 4 of the 2010 season is the franchise record, and against the heavily favored Ravens in 2011, helped send the Jaguars home with a win with 3 kicks of 50 yards, including 2 of exactly 54. This can be said for pretty much every franchise's best kicker, but by the time he leaves the NFL, Scobee will have more points than any Jaguar. Someone who hasn't left the NFL is tight end Mercedes Lewis. Of any active player, no one has started or played in more games. Lewis is a true ambassador of the sport and of Jacksonville, which is why he became so heartbroken after a breakup resulted in his release after 2017. With his longevity, he's the kind of player that can be loved by any football fan. It's a little less easy to love someone like QB Blaine Gabbert, but not because he's a bad person. In fact, many years after his draft selection, he'll help rescue victims of a helicopter crash by dragging them onto jet skis. Didn't want the credit either. What a humble guy. No, Gabbert's problem is he sucks. But he will give us one hilarious soundbite where he lets an opposing linebacker know he didn't appreciate him trying to take out his legs. Gabbert was duking it out in the quarterback room with veteran Chad Henne, 0-4 in his career against Ohio State. Go Buckeyes. Henne was not a good quarterback either, but he acted like one during Week 11, 2012. Henne came off the bench and popped off for 354 yards and 4 touchdowns in a close overtime defeat in Houston. Only 3 other quarterbacks can say they've thrown 4 touchdown passes coming off the bench, helping Henne break out with a successful career as a backup. Speaking of, Henne and Gabbert would both win multiple Super Bowls as backups, a combined 3 with the Chiefs. Someone else with a breakout performance in that Texans game was receiver Justin Blackmon, a promising talent on the field who had substance abuse violations off it. His career was derailed after 2 seasons, but in a bizarre suspended player loophole the Jaguars seemingly exploited, he was on the team's roster as many as 8 years after his last appearance. That was a lot to take in, as is Everbank Stadium for any visitor. It's home to 2 pools, so even if the team sucks, you can always go for a swim. Plus, I don't think there's a sports mascot quite like Jackson DeVille or Chester the Cheetah on crack. He rides around on a scooter, on a damn zip wire. He'll bungee jump. This anthropomorphic creature is Florida for better or for worse, and that's why I love him. He's a pretty memeable guy. That also describes the quarterback the Jaguars will take in 2014, Blake Bortles. He takes a lot of sacks, he throws a lot of interceptions, but he'll spend his last $50 on Bud Light and tacos. He is for the people. Bortles is also responsible for a quarterback season you have to see to believe. The Jaguars went 5-11 in 2015, but Bortles became the first Jaguars quarterback to break the 25 and 30 touchdown thresholds. He formed an awesome connection with Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, both individually collecting at least 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns each. But Bortles' season also drew criticism for where much of his production came from. StatHead's data on first half, second half splits dates back to 1994. And in the second half of games, Bortles threw 23 touchdowns, the 5th most in this set of data. Why is that important? Because Bortles had 16 touchdown passes plus 1 touchdown run in situations where the Jags were trailing by at least 2 scores. Basically, Bortles turned it up when the game was out of reach. But hey, how cool is it to hold a team's records for passing? That is something every kid dreams of, and Bortles did it. I have good news and bad news. The good news is I like the Jaguars' new logo. It looks pretty 90s, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it looks cool. The bad news is for anyone expecting this team to win more than 5 games, which they don't. In 2012, Mike Mularkey was hired as head coach. In 2012, Mike Mularkey was fired as head coach. In 2013, Seahawks defensive coordinator Gus Bradley was hired as the Big Cheese, but his 4-year tenure stunk trying to clean up the mess the previous regime made, and his Jaguars only won 14 times. Although his final season was a deep dumpster fire by record, Bradley and GM David Caldwell brought in some key pieces that would help construct a fearsome core for what was a much more memorable 2017 season. The 10-6 record clinched them the AFC South title. Blake Bortles, still quarterbacking, went from a disastrous 2016 to a much more serviceable 2017. Under interim-turned-permanent head coach Doug Marrone, Bortles was a complementary piece to a run-heavy offense powered by rookie 1,000-yard rusher Leonard Fournette. But the team's true foundation came on the heels of a monster defense as loaded with talent as any in NFL history. Defensive Player of the Year runner-up and free agent Calais Campbell broke the team record for sacks and spent his first of 3 memorable years establishing himself as one of the franchise's most beloved figures. Campbell and second-year Yannick Ngakoue combined for 26.5 sacks and 53 quarterback hits. But the well did not stop there. Defensive tackle Malik Jackson and edge rusher Dante Fowler both created 8 sacks apiece, and the trade for defensive tackle Marcel Darius shored up the run defense on an already stacked D-line. The linebacking group was the weakest part of the defense, but that's like saying the weakest part of Outcast was Big Boy. Fan favorite Paul Posluszny led the linebacker group in his last season in the NFL. Spread from his wings were the gifted tandem of Telvin Smith and Miles Jack. The defense was all tied together with the NFL's absolute best secondary. Free agent corner AJ Boye came in with a sensational All-Pro season, teaming up with the franchise's biggest star in second-year Jalen Ramsey, a true game-changing first-team All-Pro, a shutdown corner, and someone with the trash talk that gave him an edge. Between Ramsey, Boye, and the excellent safety duo of Barry Church and Tashawn Gibson, these 4 combined for 18 interceptions in 2017, perfectly complementing a pass rush that generated 55 sacks and was awarded the nickname Saxonville. At last, the Jaguars would host a playoff game in the 21st century, a defensive barn burner against the Bills where they pulled through 10-3. In the divisional round, they faced the Steelers team they already crushed in the regular season and crushed them again to start. The Jaguars raced out to a 28-7 lead with timely turnovers and 2 touchdowns from Leonard Fournette, but the Steelers soon cut the deficit to 7, staying that way entering the 4th. For as ripped apart as his career has been, Jacksonville's unsung hero today will be Blake Bortles. Bortles converted key third downs, and an uncorked deep ball to Keelan Cole set up Fournette's 3rd touchdown of the afternoon. For every Steelers response, the Jaguars had an answer, until time was up. The Jaguars survived the furious comeback with an adrenaline-rushing 45-42 win. Once again, it was time to face the New England Patriots and their MVP quarterback, Tom Brady. This time, it was the Jaguars who came out with a vengeance, stonewalling the season's number 2 scoring offense and finding themselves up 20-10 in the 4th quarter. On one play, Miles Jack stripped running back Dion Lewis and ran the other way for a touchdown, only for Miles Jack to have been ruled down. The Jaguars were allowed to keep possession, but it ended on a 3-and-out. On the next drive, Jacksonville had the Patriots in a 3rd and 18 scenario, only for Tom Brady to show the NFL why he was the devil, always coming back to break your hearts when you were 100% confident you had the game in your hands. The first down conversion is soon followed by a deficit-slicing touchdown to Danny Amendola. The 2 teams trade punts before the Patriots set up shop at the Jacksonville 30. Just like that, the Patriots finally retook the lead. And just like that, the Jaguars season was over, 24-20. The closest they've ever gotten to making a Super Bowl, and it just vanished. It's heartbreaking to this day, especially because of the regression that followed. A 3-1 start in 2018 that included a revenge win over the Patriots was followed by a 2-10 stretch to finish their hangover season at 5-11. More bad news, our buddy Blake Bortles would play in his last season as a starter in 2018 as well. At least he got out of it with a contract extension, which he used to make his first purchase of Bud Light and Mellow Mushroom Pizza. Never changed Blake. Great news though, Tom Coughlin is back as the Vice President of Football Operations. Coughlin had won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants as a strict disciplinarian and sought to install that same culture in Jacksonville. It didn't work, mainly because players did not appreciate being fined a ton of money and the NFL Players Association was actively warning players about signing with the Jaguars, eventually leading to a second Coughlin firing. The 2018 Jaguars still boasted a top 4 scoring defense, but they collapsed in 2019 thanks to Telvin Smith's arrest for... we can't talk about that here. And the midseason trade of Jalen Ramsey after feuding with the front office and coaching staff. At one point, Ramsey showed up to training camp with a stand-up comedian wielding a bullhorn. What? The 6-10 Jaguars didn't have much success that season, but they had personality. The first draft pick was terrific rookie outside linebacker Josh Allen, the third Josh Allen to ever play in the NFL. For actual quarterbacking, the Jags shoveled a ton of cash to veteran Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles, nicknamed Big. They also drafted 6th-rounder Gardner Minshew, a mustache man who many people say attracts cougars because he's a mustache man. If you think I'm kidding, Minshew actually got offered, wait for it, $1 million deal from an adult website as a fitness instructor in the middle of his rookie season. But let's get serious for a bit, because Minshew became the starter after Foles suffered an injury on a touchdown pass in the season opener. Despite briefly getting benched himself, Minshew had a solid rookie season, guaranteeing himself the starting role for 2020. The 2020 Jaguars team started the season 1-0, but as the Twitter account indicated, they were not satisfied with 1-0. One way for them to never live that down is to lose every game after that, making Jacksonville the second and last team in the 16-game era to finish the season this way after the 2001 Panthers. However, when you're this bad, you get to secure the first overall pick, and the Jaguars used it on one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time, Clemson's blonde, long-haired Trevor Lawrence. It's too bad Doug Marrone couldn't see all of this, as he was fired at the end of 2020. Outside of the Jalen Ramsey incident, it seemed like Marrone's players liked him well enough. Solid dude. I bring this up because Jacksonville's next head coach is not that. Legendary college football coach Urban Meyer was the team's next hire, and they regretted it almost immediately. Meyer's tenure is so disastrous, it deserves and has gotten its own video from many channels, so let's keep this brief with a sample of the chaos that transpired. Meyer created a culture of fear and paranoia, hired a strength coach accused of racism and bullying, only for the strength coach to resign right after being hired, verbally assaulted one player to the point of tears, skipped the team playing after one loss to get danced on by his not-wife at his own steakhouse, benched star running back James Robinson after a fumble, which was so shocking to the organization that the rookie quarterback of all people was pissed off at the move, and finally, kicking the team's kicker. This last incident resulted in the removal of the Urban Meyer leash at 2-11, thankfully bringing an end to a toxic locker room culture. Under interim coach Darrell Bevell, the Jaguars finished their 2021 season to a house of Jaguars fans that dressed up as clowns. Their opponent was a 9-7 Colts team who just needed to win to get in. But then the funniest thing happened. The Jaguars became a normal team for a day and eliminated the Colts 26-11. To this day, Indianapolis still has not won in Jacksonville in 10 years. Good to end the season on a high note, but 3-14 is still 3-14. One can't help but think if things went different in that 2017 AFC title. Eagles coach Doug Peterson, whose team beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl that year, was watching the game and saw the Jaguars' conservative approach to end the first half. He was furious, using that as motivation for his championship-winning game plan. If only the Jaguars had a coach like him, you say? Wait till you see who they hired. The Jaguars went from hiring a coach who said his players couldn't hold minimum wage jobs and kick people in the leg to hiring a coach that rewards players with ice cream. Peterson was well respected for how he treated players, making him the perfect antidote to Urban Meyer. For the second straight season, the team had the number 1 pick, using it on Georgia edge rusher Trayvon Walker. Analysts hated it, seeing as Michigan's Aiden Hutchinson was believed to be the superior prospect. But hey, the scouting department watches the tape more than anyone else, so who knows what happens. Under Peterson, fans would have been fine with a 5 or 6 win season. Just show any sign of life. Well, enough guessing. Turn in your Scantrons, because the answer is a season of 9-8 with the AFC South title. At one point, the Jaguars were 3-7 after starting 2-1, trailing the division-leading Titans, who were 7-3. But the team rallied and ran the table, forcing a winner-go-home scenario in Week 18 where they eliminated the Titans on a game-winning touchdown off a fumble recovery from Josh Allen. Trevor Lawrence took a giant leap that season after struggling as a rookie in one of the most toxic locker rooms of all time. If you want to know how bad Urban Meyer was, just consider that Lawrence received 1 vote for Comeback Player of the Year that season. Anyway, Lawrence's seemingly misfit cast of receivers turned out to not be misfits at all. Christian Kirk hit 1,000 yards, Zay Jones broke 800, tight end Evan Ingram, after previously being mocked for inconsistent hands with the Giants, put together a career year in 2022. This was before Ingram put together another career year in 2023. And running back Travis Etienne stayed healthy after missing his entire rookie season, rushing for over 1,000 yards and 5 yards per attempt. In the wildcard round against the Chargers, the Jaguars put up an atrocious first half. At one point, they were down 27-0, and Lawrence had 4 interceptions. But, considering where they were last year, I think fans could accept this. Not optimal, but the team was taking steps in the right direction. But then the Jaguars asked the Chargers, "Is your playoff win in the room with us right now?" Lawrence threw touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. A 27-0 deficit was now a 30-27 inconvenience. With 1:21 left, 4th and inches, season over if they don't convert, the Jaguars designed an outside run to Etienne, who gets 25. A couple plays later, kicker Riley Patterson walks it off from 36. Jacksonville is in hysterics. They've won a playoff game a year after surviving arguably the NFL's worst coaching tenure. This won't completely make up for the 2017 AFC Championship, but it's a pretty sweet consolation prize. Trevor Lawrence played a tale of 2 halves, an all-time exercise in atrocity in the first half, and a masterclass of near-flawless execution in the second. Oh yeah, he also celebrated the win at a Waffle House. Meme quarterbacks are back in Jacksonville. The Jaguars' season would end the following week in a good effort against the eventual Super Bowl champion Chiefs, but it was a roller coaster season fans will never forget. And Jacksonville looked even better to start in 2023 with an 8-3 record. But everything fell apart soon after. They lost 4 of their next 5 games, but were still in business to clinch a playoff spot in Week 18 if they could just beat the Titans. They could not. It's not all bad, though. They finished with a winning record in back-to-back seasons for the first time in 18 years. Trayvon Walker enjoyed a breakout year with 10 sacks, and Josh Allen broke the team record for sacks with 17.5. Lawrence has received his share of criticism for not living up to the generational label bestowed upon him, but that's also a lot to ask for any quarterback, let alone one that practically played on life support in his rookie season. Still, horrible offensive line play and receiver drops in 2023 couldn't stop him from landing a monster contract extension in the offseason. And this is where the story of the Jacksonville Jaguars stops for now. An AFC powerhouse in the 90s, mediocrity in the 2000s, a dumpster fire for most of the 2010s, and cautious optimism in the 2020s. Rumors of a move to London have persisted, especially with the team's 6-5 record and a home game there every year since 2013. But it looks like the city of Jacksonville has approved a new stadium that should have been privately funded, but I digress, down the road that ensures the team stays in Jacksonville for the foreseeable future. Sure, there's been plenty of losing in Jacksonville, only 2 teams have a worse win percentage than them, but this is also a Jaguars team with plenty of pride and plenty of history. Yes, there's 31 other teams that can say they've had history, but think of all the cities the NFL passed over when choosing expansion teams that had larger markets than this city, but without the chance they received. Granted, Jacksonville is the most populated city in Florida. Yeah, that's right, not Miami. But man, does this team have its moments. They'll knock off Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the playoffs. Their stadium has not one but 2 pools. Teal is one of the coolest colors ever. They built one of the best defenses ever and made one of the biggest upsets in playoff history. And they have endlessly wacky characters, like their mascot. The Jaguars have stayed in Jacksonville for almost 30 years and have a fan base that, yes, is smaller than others, but is no less passionate of their team. Their attendance has been mocked for years, but how much of it is based in truth? There's 3 awful years of attendance in 2002, 2003, and 2009. Otherwise, they've kept themselves far from the bottom of the NFL's annual attendance data. For a city whose NFL market was ridiculously small when they got to receive an NFL team, the Jacksonville Jaguars' existence today is sort of a miracle. In some seasons, they've proven themselves as legitimate contenders. In others, they've been seen as the sport's laughingstock. But no matter what's happened, they're still here, where they belong.